What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Bronx Pinstripes show. This is a special episode. We are doing a trade deadline GM episode. Normally, Scott and I have done this 4 or 5 years in a row in the off season. And now that we have Logan and Ilya on board, we figured we could team up and do a trade deadline one. Last week, we talked about how this is potentially the biggest trade deadline of Brian Cashman's Yankees career. Definitely biggest one since 2016, maybe, when he sold, 2017 when he made a lot of good moves. But this one, obviously, the team is in position to win the World Series. They're the odds-on favorite to win the World Series at this point. You can't F this up, right, Scott? Like, you cannot F this trade deadline up.
You also can't sit on your ass and just not do anything. You have to make a conscious effort to improve this team, even though we have a very good team as it exists. The roster is in good shape as it exists. However, that is basically
no.
It just can't be. You can't rest on that. You can't rest on that. You gotta try to move the ball forward and make this team even better. Even though you're flirting with some big numbers in the win column. So that's the other thing, is that there cannot be a rest period here and just say we're good. We're in good shape.
And that's sort of the approach that Logan and I took. We'll go first, so put yourselves on mute so you're not even tempted to interrupt, and then we'll let you lay out your plan, and then we can have a nice conversation, a nice civil conversation about each other's plans afterwards.
Civil conversation. Yes.
That was the approach we took. It's like, where are the
first.
areas that this team needs to upgrade? Where can they realistically upgrade, and what are they going to get the most value for? And as we've been identifying over the past month to month and a half on their, even though this team is the best record in baseball, they still do have some flaws. The number one area is obviously outfield, Joey Gallo. We've talked about this a million times. Getting rid of Joey Gallo is the elephant in the room. It has to happen, even if it means eating money. And acquiring a left fielder for upgrade over Joey Gallo, even though he has not been playing left field recently. Acquiring a left fielder or a defensively minded outfielder to upgrade was the first thing we looked at. The second thing we looked at was actually starting pitching depth. And I think we did this because innings management with Cortez, Severino, Taillon are going to become a thing in the second half much more. We've already seen them fade a little bit in June. Maybe it was because they were facing a little bit better of competition on the offensive side, but this has been, the rotation has struggled a little bit. So acquiring some starting pitching depth was the second thing we wanted to look at. And that actually changed as Logan and I were going through this. Like, originally we were like, well, we got to acquire bullpen. And you look at the guys in the bullpen. It's not easy to upgrade Peralta and Marinaccio, who I know is on the IL right now, shut down. Obviously, King and Holmes have been excellent. You hope you can get Chapman and Loaiziga back to 80% of their expectation or something. But it's not like you can just easily go out and upgrade the bullpen, because the bullpen has been super solid. And then the last thing we flirted with was a backup infielder. But again, the question is, are you even finding someone to upgrade Marwin Gonzalez? Or has Marwin Gonzalez been pretty good? Like, we kind of looked into his defensive metrics, and much better than you might have thought. So Marwin quietly has been providing them some value. Or could we acquire a starting shortstop, and then that shifts IKF into a more utility role, which I think he is equipped to do. He can play multiple positions. So that's the last thing we looked at. Not necessarily we didn't do all of those things, but that was our approach. And, of course, looking at the payroll, currently, according to SpotTrack, at $262.5 million all in. So they factor in all of the benefit numbers and everything. So like the final number. Yeah, Scott.
There's an adjusted salary number in SpotTrack that we were using because I didn't put, that's minor leagues, that's benefits. I don't think that goes against the
It does if they're on it's total 40-man payroll
it?
For total luxury tax payroll.
Yeah, but that number you're talking about also includes minor leagues. It includes a bunch of other, the number that my understanding is that they were not over that 250, so they were still under at 248 and change based on the SpotTrack adjusted.
So
salaries.
I use Fangraphs,
Adjusted.
Rosty
Go ahead,
Resource, for everything salary, and they have luxury tax payroll estimate broken down based on AAVs and salaries, and that number, estimated luxury tax payroll, is at 262.
So it's a $500,000 off.
Okay.
And frankly, I know this
That's even
episode
better then.
is
That's
if
great.
it were up to us, we go back and forth on this over and over again. It's like it's up to us, but also it needs to be based in reality a little bit because we don't want to make this such a fantasy that like it's not even applicable.
Yeah.
So even though it's up to me, I tried to stay under that third penalty of 270 because I think that is something that the Yankees are going to try and do.
Yeah.
Now, if it were,
It's a 32%, so it's an extra
and
12%.
it's my understanding that
dollars
there's
that are over that.
some draft implications as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we stayed under it as well, so
Right.
good
Like,
point.
you know,
But
if
just
you want to
curious
take the
as
approach
to
of just
which
blow it
number
out
you're
the
using.
water and acquire salary and ask questions later, fine. Like, more power to you. I'm not going to argue with it. But, all right, let's get on to the moves. I'm really excited about this first move. We're making a trade with the San Diego Padres. And going to the Padres is Joey Gallo and his full salary for the remainder of the 2022 season, which is about $5 million. Coming back to the Yankees is Blake Snell, who's about equal salary to Joey Gallo. Makes $10 million for 2022, so prorated to about $5 million. Now, the key question here is why would San Diego want to do this? They acquired Blake Snell. They extended Blake Snell. Like, why would they give up on him? He's not having a great season. When you use baseball trade values, and again, that's not the end-all, be-all, but Joey Gallo actually has much more value than Blake Snell because Joey Gallo only is signed for this year. Blake Snell signed for $16 million next year as well. So the Padres would essentially be salary dumping him for next year, acquiring Joey Gallo, who they like. Their general manager likes. They were flirting with a trade with the Yankees for Joey Gallo in spring trading. A.J. Preller liked Gallo, tried to acquire him from Texas at last year's deadline. The San Diego Padres ranked 25th in baseball for outfield offensive production. Now, I know Joey Gallo is potentially been the worst offensively productive outfielder in baseball this year, one of the worst. But, you know, maybe change of scenery type thing. He can get back to his Texas form. And the Yankees would be acquiring Blake Snell, who, again, not had a great season. His walk rate is way too high, 12.8%. His actual ERA is over 5, but his expected ERA is 3.72. And there's a lot of interesting StatCast numbers on him. His whiff percentage is great. His chase rate is solid. Fastball spin rate is excellent. Fastball velocity is good. And his expected batting average and slugging allowed are both pretty good as well. So I think Matt Blake could take a crack at him and improve him. And again, the Yankees, you know, for this year, you're trading salary and you're taking on full Blake Snell salary for next year. Logan, would you like to add anything to that trade?
Yeah, not much other than what's cool about Blake Snell is I think his stuff could actually play up in the bullpen when the playoffs came around. They kind of were. They were talking about Blake Snell on MLB Network and how he's kind of the same old story. You know, 105 pitches through 4 2/3, and you know, probably has 8 strikeouts, but you know he might have given up 3 or 4 runs, and he's just, you know, his stuff could play up, but he couldn't eat some innings later on, and yeah, I think that walk rate just kind of screams, you know, Matt Blake can kind of tinker with some stuff and, you know, get that fastball and maybe give him some kind of, you know, cutter sinker like we know they love to do and make him dominant again.
And this is my vow to the podcast. If the Yankees do acquire Blake Snell, I promise not to make fun of him every episode. I'll make fun of him a lot of episodes and refer to the I gots to get mine little Twitch thing he was doing, whatever the hell he was doing. But I won't make fun of him every episode. Next trade we're doing is with the Royals, and we're acquiring Andrew Benintendi in exchange for Luis Gil and Estevan Florial and potentially another low-level prospect if it's going to take that. However, I think between Gil, which teams are asking for despite the fact that he's had Tommy John surgery, and Florial, who doesn't really have much value to the Yankees anymore, but maybe is a lotto ticket for Kansas City in the outfield, might take another prospect, but that's totally fine. Benintendi is a free agent after this year, having a great season. Going to make about $4 million for the remainder of the season. Right now he's got a 314, 380, 400 slash line and only strikes out 13.5%, so he's essentially the anti-Joey Gallo. And he's a career 823 OPS hitter at Yankee Stadium. left-handed bat could play at Yankee Stadium. Also flirted with potentially trading Domingo Germán. Really, we were looking at like what 40-man roster guys might the Yankees want to be clearing as we approach the Rule 5 draft at the after the season ends, because they did not have a Rule 5 because of the lockout this previous year. There's going to be a lot of Rule 5 discussions going on after the season ends. Florial is a guy that has to be cleared, I think. Heel, you could hang on to Heel, but if you can get value for him right now, even though he has an injury, do it. And Germán becomes completely expendable if you do acquire Blake Snell. Logan, anything you want to add there?
Just the idea of Andrew Benintendi hitting home runs against the Red Sox in Yankee Stadium sounds like a match made in heaven. Plus, I think he's a good fit for the lineup. Like, he kind of profiles as that, where we, profile DJ or, even an IKF. I think he definitely has a little bit more power than IKF. Who doesn't? But, I think he fits the lineup well, whether that be top half, whether that be 6-7 hole. I think it's a good match.
And we tried to target left-handed outfielders because literally the only redeeming quality of Joey Gallo is that he bats left-handed. And so keeping that lefty-righty balance in the lineup was what we tried to do.
Yeah, 100%.
And the last...
Especially after the deadline last year, where they went all in on, we're not just going to be all right-handed, we're going to go get Anthony Rizzo, we're going to go get Joey Gallo, just for the balance, because for 2020, 2019, they were... 5. What did Luke Voigt call them? I forget what he called them, but they were all the same. They were slow, they were right-handed, they were swinging at slidings down.
Yeah, what did he call them?
And
did he call them like gorillas or something? Like
donkeys came to my head. I don't think that's right.
Donkeys. Yeah, it could have been. Yeah, Luke Voigt was king of the donkeys. And then the last move we're making is we're acquiring Chris Stratton from the Pittsburgh Pirates. He's a relief pitcher. Kind of very weird StatCast numbers. So when we were looking at this, his chase rate, whiff percentage, fastball spin, curveball spin, all really, really good, but his actual numbers are pretty terrible, and fastball velocity not great either. This would essentially be just a giveaway for the Pirates who want to offload some salary. He's making about $1.3 million for the rest of the season. He's arbitration eligible next year. We can get this done for a player to be named later. PTBNL is what we're trading him for. This is bullpen depth. Maybe Matt Blake can get his paws on Stratton to fix him. So this impacts the Yankees payroll by about, call it $5.3 million total, plus $4 million for Benintendi, plus $1.3 million for Stratton. Gallo and Snell are a wash for salary this year, and obviously Snell plus $16 million next year. Brings the Yankees payroll to between $267, $268 million, which is a couple $1 million under the third penalty. And some other moves, just wrapping up here. Some other moves we looked at. Obviously, D-Rob, Hap, Chris Martin from the Cubs. We stayed away from that, for the sake of the podcast, because we figured that's what you guys are going to be doing. Briefly flirted with David Peralta and Madison Bumgarner from the Diamondbacks. That would have been interesting. Could not figure out how we could possibly trade enough prospects for Brian Reynolds from the Pirates without giving up, obviously, Volpe and some Dominguez. It's hard to get there. And then I also briefly looked at Jose Iglesias from the Rockies, but ultimately decided that Marwin Gonzalez has been pretty solid. And that's our plan, those 3 moves.
Okay. Now let's get to what's actually going to happen. Here we go. No, those are solid. Let's react.
You want to react
before we get into the next one, or do we want to? Well, okay, we'll lay it out. We'll lay ours out first because there was one move that was the same, actually pretty close as far as the trade value too. So we used that trade values website just to use as a barometer, understanding it's not perfect, but it helps you get to a certain point, looking at the different prospects and making sure that you're be in the ballpark for value. So the first thing I'll just talk about our approach. So we looked at the areas that we believe needed addressing, and like you guys, we saw the outfield. We see Mr. Joey Gallo, staring us in the face. And I'm sick of it. Sick of him staring me in the face, frankly. I think he's a bad fit for this team. Always thought he's a bad fit for this team. Turns out he's a bad fit for this team and doesn't help the team progress. So that was one area we were looking at. I've been trying to get David Peralta on this team for like 2 years, 3 years now. I actually went away from that, but I do think that's an interesting place for them to go, because I think that he's going to be dealt, and it's an easy contract. The next thing we looked at is bullpen. I think that there are areas to improve the bullpen, if not just bolster it, and going into the playoffs, making sure that roster is tight and has the ability to be flexible and dominant in certain areas. And I think that there's areas that can be upgraded within that. And then the final piece was starting pitching. Thinking that this is an area that there's an opportunity to get better, but probably not with like a chance guy. So I'll talk about where I potentially disagree with what you guys are doing, and more so for what this team needs. We'll talk about that afterwards. So let me get into the actual deal. I'll start with the overlap here. Before I do that, approach-wise, Ilya, anything else you want to add to kind of what we were looking at? Because we debated a number of things, and I think that each of us, he definitely swayed me to his side on a couple of things, and I think a couple of things that I got Ilya on, so we found some nice middle ground on how we're going to balance.
I mean, obviously last year they made the deals they did, but the years before that they weren't doing much. Whether Cash was saying the options just weren't there, or the team just didn't seem like a sure thing. Whereas this is the team to double down on. We got the prospect depth for it. I mean, you'll hear it. We're giving up quite a bit. We're making some big moves. This is really the team, but we're also still keeping a lot of our top guys. So I think there's a way to really. There's no reason why this team shouldn't win at all. So we really.
The team. The interesting thing about the minor leagues right now, if you look at it, the depth is the strength. I mean, the top is very strong, but the depth is also very strong. And we're not prospect hugging. I think we've learned that doesn't work. And if you look back, even last year, there were a number of prospects that were dealt. Like there was a good volume of guys that were the depth changed very much so. It rebooted after what Cashman did. The other thing we were looking at is precedent and the types of moves that Cashman has made in the past, understanding that, certain guys he likes to see control, kind of looking into the future a little bit and who's becoming a free agent.
Can I say one quick thing about the prospects, jumping off to what you just said? I agree that the depth of prospects was really impressive. And then if you use that Baseball Trade Values website, which you're exactly right, is a good barometer. A lot of the values are between like 3 to 6. They don't have a lot of those like 15 to 20 value, other than obviously Volpe. Even Dominguez, I think his value on there was only like 12 or 14 or something like that. Yeah. And I don't see a world in which they trade Volpe, right? Yeah, like I don't know if you guys are going to end up trading Volpe, but I can't envision a world where they trade Volpe. So otherwise, you don't really, unless a team that you're trading to loves and covets a specific guy, you're basically just trading a lot of guys that add up, and sometimes that doesn't get deals done. So that's how we landed on our prospects that we traded. But go ahead.
I will say though, when you're adding a volume and you're looking at the volume, the depth is strong. That's the thing. It's not just random dudes that are filling a trade proposal out just to get some.
And it's more chances for the trade to work out for that other team.
If
you're trading 3 or 4 guys and you miss on one or two, it's easier to swallow than if you just get that one blue chipper.
Yeah. You will miss out.
Prospects.
That's the understanding, right?
Success rate is so low.
You're doing that so that one of them hits. Right. Okay. mute your microphone and shut up. And here we go. You ready? Number 1 move. Andrew Benintendi. We also went the same route. He is the anti-Joey Gallo. 13% strikeout percentage is where my eyes went, and just like, yes, I love that. He's an above average defender, slots in, plays, can play left field. He could probably play. He's a corner outfielder. And yeah, I like the fact that he was supposed to be the guy for the Red Sox. Didn't work out. Let's throw some salt in the wound. Bring him to the Yankees. I got no hate for him. He's a Royal now at this point. come in. He actually fits this team very well. Lefty bat. We were looking at 3 outfielders. It was between Benintendi, Happ, and Peralta. Those are the 3 guys that we were looking at. Peralta, all of them have a similar number as far as the salary you're looking at for this particular year. Happ has another year of control. Peralta and Benintendi are both free agents. I think that they would rather, just get someone that's a good fit for right now, and then figure out the outfield later. So that trade was Andrew Benintendi, and in fact we had very similar, Luis Gil, and we had Wisniewski in there, Hayden Wisniewski, who is he's the number 7 prospect. Gil is number 9 right now. That ended up being a bit of an overpay if you're looking at the value from the Yankee side, and added $4 million. So that's the first deal. The second thing we did was we went to the bullpen and looked at Ilya, you got anything more on Benintendi?
His bat to ball skills are really there, and that's clearly what we're missing in that spot. So, it's a good spark.
That's what we need. Could you imagine all of the bat to ball if you take every at bat from Joey Gallo and then just look what would happen if you make
It's
contact?
also nice that he has experience in
contact.
the AL East. He's comfortable in the ballparks. He's got the postseason experience. He's a good guy to throw out there.
Yeah.
Well,
some would say he's not comfortable. In the
familiar,
AL East, but yes, I like the rebound effect. All right, so then we went and we're looking at the bullpen because there are areas to improve, and there's a lot of unknowns as well. And I throw Aroldis Chapman in this I don't know what's going to happen bucket. Guys like Maraschino Cherry, whatever we're calling him today, Marianachi. He has been doing well. Obviously, this dead arm doesn't seem like it's a concern for the Yankees, but you never know. It's a young guy coming up throwing a lot more innings than he's thrown in the past. There's just a clear amount of unknowns in there. And we're going back to someone who is not an unknown. He's a very much a known quantity. And yes, you're right. We did it. David Robertson coming back to the Bronx. He's actually, if you look at the market, he might be 1 or 2 in the top guys that are available right now. And when you're looking at him, he's $1.5 million for the rest of the year. Easy. It's such an easy move. And what I think, Ilya and I were talking about this, no, there's no trade clause in his contract, but he's a 37-year-old vet. If you don't think that the Cubs front office is talking to him a little bit, where do you want to go? And then going to that team, if there's a fit in prospects, if you can fit what they're looking for, I could see them, factoring that into some capacity, because the area that with prospects and the way that this works, nobody's getting anybody good for David Robertson. You're going to get some lower level guys, but it's going to be the lower level guys that you want, the ones that you like a lot. That's who will get the deal done most likely. It's okay, you have 3 prospects. The Yankees have 3 prospects. The Red Sox have 3 prospects, and the Dodgers have 3. Which 3 prospects do I like the most? Because that's what it's going to come down to. And if you can fit that bill, and then David Robertson's you know what? If you can make it work to go back to the Yankees, that's where I'd love to go. And I think that does come in when you're talking about veteran players, especially in baseball. So we got, and I'll let Ilya talk about the haul
so
here,
we're giving up 2 low-level guys.
Who
the first one is it's a lefty pitcher, Edgar Barclay. He's our 30th ranked prospect. He's in high A. He's 24 years old, but his ETA is next year, and he's just one of those, those arms that everyone thinks they can do something with. The scouting report looks great, but he's still the 30th ranked prospect, and then we threw in another low-level guy, outfielder. I'm gonna mess this up, but Reimer Salinas. He's in single A ball. He's not a ranked prospect, but the 2 of them together, according to the baseball trade value website, it is a slight overpay, which is something we did with, I think, pretty much all of our trades, just to account for competition and
just to get there.
But the 2 of,
and honestly, throw a third one in there from someone that they like, maybe even a 4th for someone that they like lower in low A. It doesn't matter. Just get the deal done. It's basically that's the type of trade that's going to happen. Okay, so we that adds $1.5 million, so we're at 5.5 right now. And the next move, again, going back to the bullpen, because I believe that's an area that can still be upgraded. This is where so the next two trades are significant trades. These are the bigger haul, I'd say, that we're giving up. We are going to Motor City, to Detroit, and we looked at a couple of different people here. We looked at it was actually between David Robertson, then Michael Fulmer was also a guy, because he's got some really good splits right now. He's having a great season out of the bullpen. He's also in a similar situation as Robertson, in the sense that he's got, I think, a very cheap contract. It's like a $4.5 million contract total for the season, and he's a free agent. He's an ensuing free agent. That guy's been talked about at nauseum, but we went with Robertson instead, because I think getting a two-man deal from Detroit makes it overly complicated. And we went with our guy, Gregory Soto. Gregory Soto is controlled. He's one of the top relievers in the league right now. He's in the closing position right now for the Tigers. Take that with a grain of salt. It's the Tigers, but he's in that spot. And we gave up a pretty good amount of prospects here. We gave up Trey Sweeney, number 6 prospect, Brock Selvage, who is number 14, Justin Lang, 22, and Elijah Dunham, who's a 26 ranked prospect, to get Gregory Soto. That's, again, the commonality between us. This is a slight overpay, but it's a pretty decent match here. But yeah, that is a significant upgrade. That's a clear upgrade, and I think that's what the Yankees need to do. I think that this middle ground area for Cashman this year is not really that place, because they have so many guys currently on the roster that are in that middle ground that I think they have to make clear upgrades if they're going to do it. So, Ilya, anything more about Soto? This was a move that Ilya was defending and pushing for.
Yeah, I kind of just felt getting
around,
Robertson as a rental and then another rental bullpen arm didn't seem like a Cashman move. I know he likes, Robertson makes sense as a rental, but I think a second rental, wouldn't be a move he'd make. Gregory Soto was an all-star last year, left-handed pitcher. Like you said, he's got the control. He's not a free agent until 2026. He's not making anything. He's basically league minimum. It's funny, his baseball savant chart actually doesn't look that great. The average exit velocity this year, hard hit, walk percentage, chase rate. It's not that great on the baseball savant chart, but he's still having a good year. I think he's kind of in between, where he's not that veteran guy, but he's kind of proven it at the big league level a little bit, where I feel more comfortable, whereas we don't know what's going on with Britton and Chapman, Loaizaga. He comes in as that proven lefty arm, but he's still on the younger side and has the control, which seems like a sneaky little Cashman move there.
If you look at the precedent here, going back to Holmes last year, it's a similar, control in the arbitration year. It's a similar move in what he's done in the past. So again, we were kind of looking at some precedent to see where Cashman is improving the team this year, but also not sacrificing the future and looking at what the future roster would look like. And that's what this next move. This is our, I think it is our biggest move as far as prospect haul. And we're getting a starting pitcher, and we're going down to the former Derek Jeter led Miami Marlins, and we are acquiring Pablo Lopez. Pablo Lopez is a guy that starting pitcher who was on the block. He's been a lot of rumors in the offseason with the Marlins looking to move him. He's had a very good year and also controlled. This is a guy that now slots into a Yankees rotation that may very well be missing Jameson Taillon next year. We looked at that because Taillon is in a pending free agent. If they can get a guy that's cheaper and more controlled, I think that's a really good move for them to potentially replace him rather than pay Taillon. I could see Cashman doing something like that just to kind of manage the payroll a bit. So we're giving up pretty good haul here. He had a 46.8 value on the Trade Values website, so you got to get there. And we're giving up shortstop Peraza. We're giving up Everson Pereira, Luis Medina, and Randy Vasquez. So that's Peraza's number 2. Pereira is our number 10 prospect. Medina's 11, and Vasquez is number 15. This is all this is all opening up roster spots on the 40-man as well. But we got one more move. I'm gonna let
we
Ilya
had
set this one up.
we had to get rid of the big bat with a hole in it, Joey Gallo. Yes, and
We had to get rid of Chris Carter.
The Brewers is where we're going with.
Who has the appetite for a Chris Carter?
They're
Milwaukee
desperate
Brewers.
for offense. Maybe they can catch something with Joey Gallo. Who knows? So, I was looking originally to see, what contracts we could swap, but nothing really seemed at that point. I'd rather just eat the Gallo contract, honestly. So I found a left-handed pitcher. He's similar to the guy kind of that we're giving up for Robertson, Edgar Barclay. His name's Antoine Kelly. He's in the Brewers system. He's in high A. And same deal. His ETA is 2023, I think. He's got the stuff. Looks like a Matt Blake kind of guy. We'll see. The baseball trade value actually has him less than Joey Gallo. But we figured we want the Brewers to take that cash. Help us out.
Because we don't think that's
so
actually accurate.
we have Milwaukee eating his salary. They're in a fine shape with the luxury tax. And just to sweeten it a little bit, we're throwing in our good friend Albert Abreu, who actually has
So Albert Abreu and Joey Gallo for a prospect in low A, and you're eating the contract. Milwaukee's eating the contract. They're getting the better of the deal as far as the production right now. They're in a place where they do need some offense. If they can catch some lightning in a bottle with Joey Gallo, if they can fix him, they've got some guys that they've fixed. Or guy Rowdy from Toronto that has all of a sudden has this resurgence with the bat. So they feel like just like we can fix pitchers. I think that Milwaukee thinks that they can fix some bats, and Joey Gallo could be a much needed power bat that comes into their place. And again, we're just really dumping the salary, getting a low level guy, and giving them also another potential contributor with Albert Abreu to sweeten the pot here. All of that said, that gets us to a 40-man situation where we have traded away 7. We have acquired 4. So we actually have 3 open spots on the 40-man that we could use for protection for the Rule 5 for next year in our own damn system. So that is where we are. We actually we're playing with a luxury tax number of 248, trying to keep it under 250 just in case we were. And we actually, I think we were at a plus 1.8 million if you look at all of the deals that we had, because we're spending in prospect value more than monetary value, and that is what Cashman likes to do. He does tend to do that more, and tries to keep that tax number in check as much as possible. So I think all these are relatively doable, and I'm fired up about the new
How much
Yankees,
total
'cause they're gonna win the
payroll
World
are
Series
you
with
adding
those.
for all those guys?
1.8 million. With Milwaukee
1.8.
eating Joey Gallo's deal. I mean, it was like 6.8.
No. It's got to be. It's got to be
It's
more
actually
than
a little
that,
less
though,
than that because we didn't put
Benintendi's got
Abreu's.
like 4 million, right?
4.
And so okay.
Robertson has 1.5. Gregory Soto is 350. Pablo Lopez has 1 million. And,
So then
and
5.
then we're
The 5
subtracting
for
5
Gallo,
with the
minus
Milwaukee
5
deal.
for Gallo. Got it.
Cut the. Originally, I was trying to get it where we're only shipping out half of Gallo's contract, because I think they would do that. So if we're low on our number, and again we're under 250 still, and if we're already over 250 in real numbers for the tax, then it doesn't matter. We're well under 270 if that's truly the number. So that's why I said it's kind of a moot point, because we were trying to keep it under 250 at that point. But yeah, it's manageable. It's a lot of prospect value here. So in the end, the Yankees definitely gave up a good amount of prospects. They're number 2, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 14, 15, 22, 26, and 30 prospects.
Okay, so you guys are living in quite the fantasy world, I think. That's a lot of moves. I was looking at Soto's Statcast numbers. Yeah, not good. It's got like a 2.40 ERA, but over a 4 expected ERA. That's not to say he couldn't be fixed, as Stratton on our plan is being fixed. That
and Snell in your plans. You're fixing.
well,
Blake
Snell has a lot of
also,
good StatCast numbers,
veteran.
and Snell's won a
Pitcher.
Cy Young. So
Soto wasn't also.
So is Madison.
none of us
Bumgarner.
are acquiring Madison Bumgarner. I said we flirted with Madison Bumgarner. That's it.
He didn't like it when you flirted with him.
That would be like one of the most moves at a trade deadline I feel like any team has ever made. Like that's a lot of roster shuffling. So you are.
I mean, go last year. They made a good amount of moves, and they shuffled a lot of prospects. More, if you look back, there was some small moves too. Don't forget the Luis Cessa move was done. That's essentially Gallo. And then Holmes.
So you accounted
right
for the 40-man roster stuff, but I don't know that you're accounting for the major league roster. How are you going to fit 4 new major league players on this roster with only removing 1?
The 25, yeah. So there's some assumptions in here with the bullpen.
Who are you
You're gonna have to
swapping
swap
out? I
some
mean,
bullpen guys.
fine. You swap out. But like that's the same issue we ran into when you start running down the numbers. Like a lot of these guys don't.
If you acquire a Soto, Lucas Licky, someone like that could also be falling off the wagon. There are guys that you just. There are injuries that are happening. Like there's plenty of room for what we're doing.
You also have to
gone,
assume though
1-1
that
there.
you know how the Yankees are. They want a spot or two in the bullpen that is able to be shuttled up and down. You know when they have a long game. You know right now we have JP Sears and Ryan Weber in the bullpen. You know obviously we're getting Lasagna. Yes, 100%. But when
But that was
before the
based on
season
injury,
started, they
because
were
of
going
injury.
to DFA Albert Abreu had they not traded him for Trevino because they needed that spot to be open because otherwise every player in the bullpen couldn't be sent down. And then what happens if there's a long game? What happens if the starter gets knocked down? They need another pitcher. They're kind of stuck. So that's a little bit problematic there, in my opinion.
Well, I agree. Yeah, the major league roster shuffling was a thing we tried to be conscious of because we started to go down the list of the bullpen arms, and there's really not many that even deserve to come off the roster. And then when you're talking about, okay, well, we'd be adding D-Rob, adding Soto, I like fine. I like those two players. I especially like David Robertson. Legitimately, the only reason we didn't have him in our plans is because I knew he was going to be in your plans and didn't want to have the same freaking plan up and down. It's kind of ironic that we both had Andrew Benintendi, so I guess the Yankees have to acquire Andrew Benintendi because we basically had the same trade for him. And I agree. I would love that move to upgrade the position players.
It's a no-brainer move. It really does fit. It fits beautifully. It fits beautifully in the type
if
of
we're
player
talking
that he
about like
is.
morphing
No
our
doubt
two
about it.
plans into something that would be the ultimate plan, Benintendi as the centerpiece on the offensive side, acquiring him, and then whatever they do in the rotation of the bullpen. Remember, if they do acquire Lopez or if they do acquire Blake Snell or any starting pitching, that means one of the existing rotation guys can move to the bullpen, or that guy that they acquire can move to the bullpen. So again, with your plan, you're adding all of these guys, and like there's legitimately not enough places on the roster for them to pitch.
This team is one of those teams where I think it's one of those deals where you figure it out. There's going to be another injury. There's going to be another setback. And I'd rather this is the team. I know the Yankees like to have those spots, but when it comes down to the last month or two of this season, this team should have those lockdown, steady guys. There's no reason if they can have them that it shouldn't be lockdown and steady this year.
Yes. You could play Legos and act like this thing is a Jeep up until a certain point in the season, but this is a primed championship level team. There's no dicking around with like some guys just for flexibility. You want to solidify as much as humanly possible. The other thing about this is that when you're looking at a pitcher move, I'll disagree with your Snell move a little bit here. They don't need to get an unknown quantity right now. First of all, I don't think San Diego's trading. We were looking at San Diego for if San Diego is out of it, like maybe Snell's not a move that says I'm giving up. That's probably not a move. Musgrove would be that move. Musgrove is actually on a contract year. He's a free agent next year. We were looking at that. I'm like, I hope the San Diego Padres go on like a 12-game losing streak here so that they can attack Joe Musgrove, because that's the guy to go after, honestly. And, assuming that everybody else on the planet, if they did this exercise, they would have Luis Castillo in there instead of Snell and instead of Pablo Lopez. But frankly, we were just sick of talking about him in attachment to a trade. I could see that going down as well, though, because of the free agency. But I think that they need to clearly upgrade. They need to clearly upgrade that spot if they're going to go into that spot. And a guy like Snell, to me, isn't a clear upgrade, whereas a guy like Lopez is a clear upgrade. And there's control there, understanding that Tyone will be a free agent, and they're probably not going to pay him with all things equal. With the and it's a very Cashman move. Set the future up a little bit. Get a guy that you can tinker with and even improve.
I think the Tyone thing really.
That's where we went with
the Tyone thing really comes down to
over
Judge.
that one
I think.
for
I
a bit,
don't know if it's a matter of how long is the Judge contract going to take, and Tyone might get sick of waiting around, or we may not have the money for him. So that was the thought.
They might just decide that Tyone is not the guy they want to sign long term.
Yeah.
I mean, that could also just be
right. Especially if they get a guy
you acquire Lopez, obviously team control. That's
deadline,
exactly what
like.
they've done multiple times over the past few years, most recently with Tyone. I mean, team control. Snell's under team control next year for $16 million. That's a known quantity that you can just slot in, even if you do lose Tyone. Yeah, it's expensive, but it's kind of the going rate for a veteran starting pitcher.
Do you want Tyone, who's been in your system, and pay him probably less than that, or a Blake Snell
Tyone's
that
probably going to get about $16 million or more of AAV
but
in multiple years.
About that. Maybe it's about the same. But you do know more, I think, what you get with him because he's been in the system.
Yeah.
He's been working with Blake, who may or may not be
there.
But
you might decide Blake Snell has better upside.
That is the other.
With Blake Snell, though, if I may defend the move a little bit, the Padres don't need to be out of that for that to happen. He's the clear sixth starting pitcher. They're going 6-man rotation right now, and AJ Preller has a rap of doing weird shit for different. I mean, they traded for Adam Frazier last year and was like, we don't really like this guy, and in the offseason, traded him to Seattle because not because they weren't contending, just because they shuffle major league pieces if it means that they feel like they could fill a hole somewhere else. They have a rap of doing that. And
I don't disagree. I kind of admitted that. I qualified that. Right. I think that
100%.
I don't think
but also shedding
Musgrove
$16 million for them next year would allow them to give Musgrove a contract, right?
No,
it helps.
Padres,
they're not afraid to spend.
They got a lot of money on the books.
They do have a lot of money on the books. It's true. So,
right, but so they're pot committed, right? They've been big on free agents over the last couple of years. Why stop now? Or maybe they will stop because that's the thing I never get about mid-market teams. It's you dip your toes in the water and then you're not willing to actually commit and go all the way, and then you find yourself in no man's land.
It was like Cincinnati tried to do this.
Seattle has done this a dozen times over the past 20 years.
Major league ready guys. We're like, what are we doing? Yeah, what's the plan here? You actually think you're going to go from a 500 level team to a 500 team to a contender with these guys? Because you're screwing yourself for next year. No, I don't disagree. And I think Soto was the one guy that I could see. I think at least they're going one bullpen arm. Soto, we were adding another one to really solidify that. And you're right, it does add in some roster situations, but again, they figure it out. So if they don't do that second bullpen arm, wouldn't surprise me. If they went over to Detroit, got Fulmer, and that was
Fulmer under control next year?
That's a guy that has good splits.
Free agent.
No, he's a free agent. He's in the same situation as Robertson.
I mean, Robertson's going to be.
He's a little cheaper.
Robertson,
a little bit more
forever
expensive.
long he pitches, he's going to be one of these nomads, just going team to team at this point. So he's never going to get more than a 1-year contract.
No, but my point is that Fulmer.
I also
is
really
in
like Chris Martin on the Cubs. We looked extensively into him. Is he 6'10"? I didn't even.
6'10" Chris Martin.
Yeah, he pitched for the Yankees back in 2016.
Is it the same Chris Martin?
But he profiles.
Yeah, I do. He's been in the league forever.
He profiles as
he's
total.
He's pushing 40 years old.
Matt Blake would love this guy.
I love how a lot of our plans hinge on Matt Blake. We're just Matt Blake will take care of it. Isn't Matt Blake in a contract year?
Yep.
Hey, our guys are not being fixed. Well, let me be clear about he is. Actually.
Sign Matt Blake long term. Screw anyone else.
I disagree with what you just said because I think that what they're going to be looking for right now is someone that doesn't need to be fixed. That they need a guy that's more of a sure thing. They have plenty of these guys.
Who's the
that can
last
come up and
sure thing
potentially
pitcher they
contribute
acquired?
at a level that,
How'd that work?
I mean, you could argue Sonny Gray. You could
Every
you could argue
pitcher,
Sonny Gray.
most pitchers that they've acquired in the past, call it 6 years, has been a project to some level.
No, I agree.
I didn't
Sonny
say
Gray was not a
every, I
project
said
at that
most.
point.
Sonny Gray, you're
was
right, was probably the closest thing to a sure thing that they have acquired pitching-wise in a very long time. Everyone else has needed to be fixed as a freaking trailer.
And Sonny Gray was 17. Yeah, what the hell is happening? It sounds like a train's going by. Sonny Gray was 17.
J-Hap.
That was the last season where they were making moves to potentially...
Okay, Hap, you're right, Ilya. Hap
military.
was a sure
So
thing as well.
I think
then
they're
they
gonna go
acquired
in.
Paxton, that was a project. Tyone, obviously a project. So it's not crazy for them to acquire another starting pitcher, basically buying low on a guy who, if you can get to rebound to a form or fix to a certain level, then you maximize your value. That is a typical Cashman move.
Also, we kind of took a different approach to the 40-man for next year kind of thing. Every one of these deals that we orchestrated could be done with guys that are Rule 5 eligible. And Cashman has proven that he loves to deal those guys at this point. Just about every guy except for one last year would have been Rule 5 eligible had he not traded them. That's why the Joey Gallo move, while it does sting, all those guys that are in the big leagues now for Texas would have had to been placed on the 40-man, and they just didn't have room for it. Same thing with the Rizzo deal. Now, Mike, I have a question. Right. You just did it.
We did do that
did it backwards.
in a different
That's right.
way.
So
We just
took a different
opened up
approach.
spots
Now
so
you
that people
you
could
are
be- so-
trading Peraza, you said, for Pablo Lopez. Are you sticking with IKF at shortstop for the rest of the year and just waiting till Volpe's ready? And you just
Yes. Yeah, they're not going to change the shortstop position.
Can we
at this
talk
point.
about that for a
I don't know
second?
why they would do that? It's too big of a position. It's too big of a position to
I agree they don't need another
mess with
utility
right
guy.
now. They don't need
but,
another utility
I mean,
guy. They have plenty.
They could call
of
up a
utility
shortstop.
guys. In the infield, I mean.
I don't
right
see them
now,
calling
I
up
don't
a
see that
shortstop,
happening.
but so we flirted around with Jose Iglesias. Like, I thought if you bring, who's having a very good offensive season with Colorado, I thought that acquiring Jose Iglesias, like, you shore up your defense and you could even slot IKF as the guy that plays third, basically all the infield positions, right? But then we were looking at it, and number one, Iglesias's range has diminished quite a bit, and StatCast does not love his defense. And then also we were looking at it, and Marwin Gonzalez is actually rated pretty good defensively. So it's like, are we even upgrading by doing that?
Right.
As I don't even want to call IKF bad because he has not been bad. For as mediocre as IKF has been, and frustrating at times with the weird defensive lapses, I don't know that there's really much you can do to upgrade that position.
He's a clear
Well,
upgrade from what we were last year, and
I'm not
he's
calling
not
him a problem.
at
There's
all.
one
And I
problem
don't
in
think
this
they're gonna
lineup.
address-
There's one problem.
They're not going to
in this
address
lineup.
situations that are not.
If
a
you can
problem.
fix the Joey
Yes.
Gallo's spot, if
correct.
you can get
There is one
Benintendi in
problem in
Gallo's
the
spot, I don't care what IKF does from
Huge.
the 9-hole.
Right. Exactly. You put Benintendi,
Exactly.
probably bat him 6th or 7th, right ahead. After Donaldson, call it. That is such a massive upgrade for this lineup. It's not
I like IKF. My gripe with IKF, and the reason that I kind of toyed with it, was I don't care about his bat. I don't care about the shortstop's bat at all. But I want every play to be made. And his eye test is he's kind of just an okay shortstop. I mean, he botches some of the routine stuff. He makes some decent plays. We even looked at Miguel Rojas on the Marlins. He's a crazy good defender. In a contract year, has played in Miami for a long time. So I'm assuming they're going to probably try and keep him and retain him longer than this year. But it was something that we talked about just because of how great his defense is.
Yeah, I don't see them messing with a big spot like that. To me, that's over tinkering, in my opinion. Adding some more spots for depth purposes and understanding that there's some young guys that maybe aren't ready for it. Okay, you can live with that. I was even thinking about it at one point, or it didn't even come into our conversation, but it entered my mind. Is like, are they going to look at catcher depth at this? Like, can they upgrade? But again, I don't think they mess with that either because of the of how the guys work with the pitchers, and the way that the pitchers are going, you could upgrade on Higgy right now, but why? Why?
We didn't even
is
look
there
at
really a benefit for that? Bring in someone new into this?
We didn't even look at that.
We didn't. It was a thought that entered my brain. It didn't get papered even a little bit, but it was something.
Obviously, if Trevino goes down, that's, I think, a pretty big loss. As we established on the last episode, Scott thinks he's the MVP of the league. But I think that you just got to cross your fingers that both of those catchers stay healthy, because there's not much you can do to upgrade it.
Yeah, I mean, they could go to Chicago and get a catcher if they needed one, but they don't need one right now.
All right, well, that's the GM plans. I mean, we didn't really shit all over each other's plans. Maybe we talked about how some things are potentially unrealistic. I do like your plans. I think that's a lot. I think that if all that happens, that would be pretty stunning. What do we think of all the moves we listed?
You keep saying all of those things that happened, but there were the exact same amount of moves.
Yeah, but they're more significant major league moves rather than just like.
Then adding a starting first baseman and what they thought.
Well, they
was a
didn't have
starting
those
left fielder.
positions last year.
I don't know.
So.
Right, but those are significant
fine.
chunks onto.
Of all those
team.
moves we just listed, which one is the actual most realistic?
Robertson.
Robertson.
I think Robertson is very realistic, and I do think that there's a little bit of a veteran chirping with that.
Can I
type of
rephrase
guy.
the question?
I don't think it happens a lot, but Benintendi,
Can I
I think
rephrase
is
the question?
realistic.
If only one of those, what one move needs to happen?
Which one do I want the
move
most?
needs to happen where you could be satisfied after the trade deadline? And I think we all agree it's getting rid of Joey Gallo and upgrading the outfield, right? If that does not happen, I don't think any of us are going to be satisfied with the trade deadline.
I think that they're going to go after one more.
Agree.
They need another reliever too. I think they need a
agree. But if they
solidified
don't
reliever.
acquire a bullpen
So
arm,
if they
I don't
came out
think
of
we're
this,
sitting here
yeah.
August 1st shitting all over them. If on August 1st Joey Gallo is
but I'm saying that
playing
there's a
right
potential
field
missed
batting ninth,
opportunity.
I think we're shitting all over them.
Yeah, Joey Gallo's got to move. He's got to figure that out, no doubt. Number one priority, get out of the door. But I would be very, very surprised, and yeah, I would think that they missed an opportunity if they didn't upgrade someone in the bullpen.
Yeah, acquiring a starting pitcher does upgrade the bullpen as well. Like that can't be lost in this whole thing.
Yeah, no, that's
all right.
Valid point.
Well, that's it. Let us know on Twitter at YankeesPodcast which plan you like best or which pieces of the plans you like best. Thank you, Logan, for helping me with our plan. I think our plan is great, and I think that if they do that, the Yankees are going to win the World Series. Scott, anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, clearly our plan was better. That's it.
All right, that'll wrap it up.
Well, I'm very curious to see how it goes down. No, I am very curious to see how it goes down because I think it's going to
Yes,
be a
and we
very
decided to
interesting
do
month of
this
July.
about a month before the trade deadline, just in case some moves do happen that wouldn't ruin our plans entirely.
Yeah.
So, yeah, very much looking forward to the deadline. And we will be back at you talking, probably do a quick episode after this 2-game series in Pittsburgh. We'll talk to you then.